This is an official content warning for the following stuff in this list below. Please be advised that this video may be disturbing to some viewers. Hi guys, this is JoAnn speaking here. I could have made this an official paleo review video, but because it talks about a book and I'm usually someone who's not much of a novel reader, this will be a separate review video. As you guys can tell by the title and the thumbnail, I'm talking about the book called Primitive War from 2017, written by Ethan Pittis. I actually never heard about Primitive War until news began to spread around about the movie. I remember being intrigued because it's one of those things that are not associated with Jurassic World, and we definitely need more unique dinosaur projects. However, I was hesitant on checking out one of the books at first because, as I said before, I'm not a novel reader. In the past, reading was treated more like a chore rather than something fun to do, and I had the tendency to have little to zero patience. But when the movie was on its way to theaters, I decided to heed the advice of some friends by checking out the first novel in order to get the idea of what I'm going to be getting myself into when I eventually watch the movie. In case you're wondering how long it took me to complete the book, it took me nearly a month. And as for the story, the first Primitive War novel takes place in 1968 during the Vietnam War. A search and rescue team called Vulture Squad head off to a mysterious valley only to discover that the place is populated by dinosaurs and now they have to bust their behinds to survive. And as for my thoughts on the book, sheesh! This was the most intense sci-fi book I've ever read in my life. Very graphic, and there are plenty of disturbing scenes. Admittedly, I've had some moments where some details were tough to read through, but to be fair, it is a book related to war and survival after all. It's never a pretty picture. Being part of a war will screw people up, especially when they've seen things they're not supposed to see, and while survival is possible, you won't feel the same ever again. Plus, if you're in a situation where you not only go through a lot of crap, but then you had to deal with dangerous animals you've never dealt with before, it really is like adding insult to injury. Imagine going to a valley only to see living, breathing dinosaurs living there, even though they're supposed to be extinct for millions of years. Anyone in their right mind would be so confused by a sight like that. The book goes into a lot of detail with our main characters, including not just their personalities and backgrounds, but also their struggles. If I had to pick one of my favorite characters, it would have to be Gerald, because he was a person who was willing to help someone who was struggling with mental problems. In the book, Logan was battling violent, intrusive thoughts in his head due to schizophrenia, but Gerald offers his support and gives him words of encouragement, which I thought that was really wholesome. It does get really sad though when Gerald lost his life after a raptor disembowels him and was shot in the head to be put out of his misery. Jurassic Park was definitely one of the inspirations for this book. In fact, there's some references including Leon saying, "Must go faster" when the father T-Rex shows up. There's also the part where Ricardo said, "Hold on to your butts," while the helicopter was making a landing. And if you've been into Jurassic Park, you can't help but to be reminded of the T-Rex family from The Lost World when you look at the father and the mother Tyrannosaurus with their young. And we can't talk about Primitive War without talking about other dinosaurs. I counted at least 3 herbivore species and 4 carnivore species. There's also 2 prehistoric animals that aren't dinosaurs called the Utahraptors and Quetzalcoatlus. By the way, we will talk about the Quetzalcoatlus in a bit. Not a bad variety, although there were no mentions of hadrosaurs or sauropods. In fact, back in August, during the time I was still reading the book, one of my friends, who's familiar with Primitive War, showed me a clip from the movie where there were some species of hadrosaurs doing their own thing in the background, and it appears there's an Amargasaurus too. Looks like the movie added more varieties of dinosaurs there, so that's really nice. Please keep in mind that at the time of this recording, I have not seen the movie yet. In fact, it did not play in the town I currently live in, and that's why I wasn't able to go see it in a theater. No worries, I already know how I'll see it though. Also, can we talk about how terrifying the Utahraptors were in this story, especially the alpha, known as the Cyclops? They are already scary, considering these guys are huge in real life, but this book describes their intelligence in detail, including following Vulture Squad and hunting them. Oh, and they can slice you open. I already mentioned poor Gerald, but there was another disturbing moment that gave me the heebie-jeebies, particularly shortly before the climax. Baroden, one of the human antagonists, gets his stomach sliced open by a Utahraptor, and he gets taken to a colony of more Utahraptors where he was placed in a nest. But wait, it gets worse. Some baby Utahraptors Baroden's open up stomach and start eating him on the inside while he can only watch. Yikes! It'd be a good idea to watch some cute puppy videos after reading something like that. Now, back to the Quetzalcoatlus. It is safe to say that this was the most disturbing depiction of this animal I've seen so far. We all know this bird is terrifying due to how ridiculously huge it is. It's like a giant stork the size of a giraffe. But what if I tell you that this story added a disturbing feature to this animal? In the novel, Quetzalcoatlus has these barbed tongues they use to pull prey apart. There was a scene where a guy named Tolstoy meets an agonizing death from these pterosaurs. Not only he was stabbed with beaks, but he was also torn apart by those barbed tongues. There was another disturbing scene where Leon sees a Quetzalcoatlus outside, and this giant bird opens its mouth showing a severed human arm wrapped in its tongue. Imagine that being a head instead of an arm. In fact, there was a moment for where another Quetzalcoatlus was swallowing something and it turned out to be a severed human head. But wait, it gets worse. There's detail on how the outline of the face of that head can be seen from the throat of this animal, and it looked like the face was screaming. Yeah, that's nasty. Honestly, these birds having these barbed tongues is pretty on par with the Dilophosaurus from Jurassic Park having venom, and even the one from the 1993 movie where it has both frills and venom. Before I conclude this video, I might as well bring up some favorite scenes of mine from the book. I like the part where it shows Deinonychus climbing in trees and using them to jump down on prey. Even though in real life the possibility of that is more suiting for juveniles, it's still a pretty cool feature in the book. And also, I can't help but to laugh and gag at the same time where a Stygimoloch lifts up its tail and sprays Eli in the face with pee. I really did not see that coming. Last but certainly not least, I also enjoyed the Triceratops and Caprosuchus scene. Really intense, and it does get pretty emotional after Logan sacrifices himself to help his comrades survive. In conclusion, Primitivore is not for everybody here, especially those who are squeamish to graphic content. But at the same time, it was a very engaging novel, and I thought it was one heck of a scary novel. I'm already aware there are more Primitivore books besides this one. I might check the others out if I feel ready to do so. Despite the graphic content and containing moments that can be upsetting to read, this novel has an engaging story, good characters, dangerous and thrilling sequences, and unique features with several prehistoric animals. Even though this is not part of my usual paleo review series, I'm still gonna give it a sickle claw rating. Primitivore 2017 will be given 8.5 out of 10 sickle claws. And there you have it. Now all that's left for now is to check out the 2025 movie whenever I get the time to do it. From what I've heard, it's a mixed bag. There's people who love it, while there's people who think the movie sucks. But I'm still gonna check it out regardless. I guess you could say that this is my first time doing a book review video. Which reminds me, I need to get myself a copy of the Jurassic Park novel soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later in another video.